July the 27th, 2021. Guys, you're looking at current information about the position of the Earth and the Sun and Mercury and Venus and a couple of the satellites. Notice your timestamp at the top. It says July the 27th at 0000 UT, Universal Time. Now, it is the 26th here, but it has turned to the 27th. They're 5 hours ahead of us from the East Coast time. But the reason I'm doing the video, I'm going to keep it short, is just kind of a scientific statement so that you guys that watch this will understand. Maybe in the future it will help someone as you watch the events of our sun. But in the last couple of videos about the solar eruptions continuing, I said there's one factor that may change everything as it turns Earth facing. And what it was I want to point out something. In the gray areas here, that's Mercury, and you can barely see Venus right here behind this satellite. Now there's stereo A here, the Earth is in the green, and stereo B here. B we get not a lot of information from because it's so old and it's been hit by so many coronal mass ejections that it's very grainy. But anyway, the way this was set up years ago was that stereo B in the blue would orbit ahead of Earth in its orbit, and stereo A behind would follow Earth, and that would give you images of the sun from every different direction and everything that came between Earth's orbit and the sun, comets, whatever it was. But what I'm talking about here, again, is just something that I've always talked about, and it's called the electric universe. I'm not the only one, but the arcing effect between objects and the sun. If a comet that comes into the inner solar system, you'll see great coronal mass ejections and solar flares because there's an arcing, just like you were to arc your battery over in your car with a screwdriver or something, you're going to see the spark, opposite polarities. And as these objects are traveling around the sun, they pick up that opposite polarity. And so as we saw all the solar flares, double halos, just continuous 1 or 2 a day of these CMEs, the sun was very close to Mercury and Venus. So what I'm saying is, now that we're looking at the sunspots that were on the sun on the backside with Mercury and Venus, now they're turning towards Earth and they're starting to decay. In the last couple of days, we haven't seen much activity. So just to show you how electric this universe is why I'm doing the video, because now we don't have that close proximity right here of Mercury and the sun or Venus and the sun. The Earth is the third planet out. It's further away. I'm not saying we're not going to have any more solar activity for the next week or two, but it has died down tremendously, and that's because the Earth is so much further away. And in the orbit of Mercury, for example, if you look at this very closely, Mercury is right here in the, again, gray dot. Notice how much closer at this point Mercury is to the sun than it would be if it was opposite the sun right here, because it's not a perfect circle in orbits. Sometimes they come closer, then they're further away. All the planets do that. Jupiter does it every 11.8 years, which matches our solar cycles. It makes sense, doesn't it? Our sun's binary twin. A lot of people don't agree with that. You just don't understand what a fell gas giant is and what the ancients called Nibiru, the planet of the crossing. And do you know that and I've got videos up that were up at one time that show the scientific data on different models of why there was chaos in the inner solar system thousands and thousands of years ago, because suddenly there was a connection between the sun and its binary twin Jupiter, and it was pulled closer. Saturn was tied up in that gravitational pull, and it was also pulled closer. And at that time, there was not an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. There was a planet that got destroyed because of this crossing of the planets. There's no Planet X hiding. There is nothing hiding out there behind the sun. We would know it. The effects would be obvious. What it is is, again, the models show that Jupiter was pulled in. I don't know if the sun was extremely strong, Jupiter was extremely strong, and they were pulled together. We don't know exactly the details, but all the models show that happening, and as it was pulled towards the inner solar system, there was chaos. And the ancient Sumerians talk about this, the Anunnaki. But it was Jupiter, and Jupiter was called Nibiru. So all the things that you hear about Planet X is hiding in the solar system, or there's a ninth planet, no, that's bull crap. Jupiter did it the first time. Will we have enough time in this particular era to see it again? I don't know. Things are moving very fast. But study your history. Look up the ancients called Jupiter Nibiru. Look up the Jupiter winds. Some of the videos I've done in the past. But going back to the point of this video is now that Mercury and Venus are still on the backside of the sun, things should be coming down because there's not that gravitational magnetic arc, or called the connection point, or magnetic connection point between all the planets and the sun. And while these were on the backside, they didn't have far to arc. And that's why for the last few days it's been a little quiet. Let's take a look at Soho. Now I've got this as it rotates through, going back 4 days up until today on the 26th. So it goes from the 22nd. Now on the 24th, notice your timestamp, there were 2 explosions. Then this activity, or the solar spots, started turning Earth facing. They were away from that magnetic connection of Venus and Mercury. So going through the 26th, from the 24th to the 26th, hardly any activity. And it's not to prove that I was right about it. It's to prove the point that this is what you need to watch for as you go through this next solar cycle of 25. And we still have 5 years or 6 years to the peak. 5 years probably. And then it will start declining again. But it's increasing so rapidly that we need to pay attention to it. Not only that, the Earth rotates the sun every 365 days, but Mercury and Venus does not. So here's a little homework. Go in and look at the orbit of the planets and see when they will be on the same side of the sun as the Earth. And you're going to start seeing a lot more activity at that point. Just a kind of a lesson from years and years of watching this. And for you guys that love this type of information, I want you to watch and look at the orbital planes. We've got a couple of links on our website that show where the planets are. And just go there and take a look at it and see for yourself. And it's going to be very interesting now that we are going into solar cycle 25. Mercury and Venus is not going to be far behind in becoming Earth, between us and the sun. Then you're really going to see some activity kick in. Also, just a quick note, the tropical system we were watching off of Florida did turn north and northwest, coming in down into Georgia, but it never gained strength. In the last video, I talked about the upper-level wind shear had changed from west to east to west, but it continued, and it stripped the storms, or the top-level clouds, off of the center of circulation. But now if you look at it, and half of that storm, which is just not strong at all because it stayed so dry, but now that it is on land, it is popping up thunderstorms. So you guys in the area along the coast of Georgia, that's what's happening right now. But we're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.